But Bhakti has a way of reinterpreting a lot of the emotions, like neediness. If you move it into longing, which we were getting into, it's not like you're not a full person and you're borrowing from other people and you're needy. You now project that neediness out your voice, and it's a call to the divine. And so for me, meeting Igor, I was very quickly, I feel better. Because I, in many ways, have been a custodian of what the word Kundalini means in America. I'm in Wikipedia, if that means anything. I was the director of the Kundalini Clinic, if you know anything about the history of spiritual emergence. That started it all before Stan Grof. And Lee Sanella wrote a book called Kundalini Transcendence or Psychosis, which became a milestone publication in psychiatry that would be like 30, let's say 20 some years later, entered the diagnostic manual, if you know what that is, the DSM, under what's called spiritual issues. But it all traces back, and when you're living your life, you don't know exactly that you are participating in a historical beginnings. Bhakti Psychology, it's a yoga of emotion, which is very similar to what we call psychology. Very quickly overlays into family and partnership love relationships, where the biggest contribution is, I believe, to Western psychology that Bhakti makes, is it has an ideal version of these relationships. Western psychology, and it's not good, I don't think, they're very preoccupied with pathology and naming patterns. Have you ever heard this language? Like gaslighting, have you ever heard of this term? Of course you have. Yeah, there's a lot of emphasis on narcissism, all these big, they're in my world, it's not a free-for-all with these terms. It's like polio. You don't say, oh, that person has polio, as if that's a bad thing. It's a tragic thing. And narcissism is, in my world, is not something that you call people who you don't like or something. It's a very tragic and lonely disorder. So that is Western psychology. It's a medical approach to looking at what's wrong. Freud was a psychiatrist. But Bhakti has a way of reinterpreting a lot of the emotions, like neediness. If you move it into longing, which we were getting into, it's not like you're not a full person and you're borrowing from other people and you're needy. You now project that neediness out your voice, and it's a call to the divine. And so in relationships, this is how I really spent the bulk of my career, was helping couples and families. I think of it as a gift. I used to be able to make money doing this. It's hard to believe. I would just say, well, what do you love about this guy? And I would have couples come in, they were already seeing lawyers to divorce. I just didn't care, I would thank them for coming, because they were giving me a chance to have their grandchildren visit them as grandparents in 30 years from now at their same home. And if they were parents, that they would see their kids' marriage sitting on the same side of the church. Right off the bat, they realize I'm not the marriage therapist that's going to let them air their angers and frustrations. Because I saw quickly that it breaks people up. You already did it at home. And now the therapist is charging you and he's got to catch up with all the details. I didn't need to catch up on any details, because that's not the point. The point is the goal. And what is the goal? To feel that they're coming, they're longing for something. And that's all that I need, because I can talk about the longing that they have, and I know what it's for. They want to look into somebody's eyes who's looking to their eyes and feel, look at this woman. Look, I don't mean to put you on the spot. It's easy. I can look at anyone. you can look at each other if you want. It's an immediate feeling. As soon as you look out your eyes, you see people this way. And the glisten on the eyes that we see in that moment, in the tantric anatomy, that's the eros, of your heart opening, causes the secretion of tears. You can put your own a more erotic terminology on that if you like, but that's what, and we start to feel this rapport because the heart has changed the quality of the tears or the moisture on the eye, and you suddenly feel connected. So I found that I could just say to a couple, well, what do you love about each other? And then I'd say, well, don't talk to me, talk to the person who you came here with, because they have to talk to the therapist about it all. Yeah, she's great, or he's like this. And I would do it when they're, like I say, enraged. And sometimes if it was really like incredibly, what's the right word, a disaster crisis, like 3 days after the affair is discovered on the cell phone, it's not an easy ask. But I would say, if you can do this, it'll stay with you the rest of your life. That you really can change the channel for at least a minute and say a positive thing. It may save your life. Driving in a car and it's rainy and slippery, and you can make a change very quickly. Same sort of a thing. To save something, you become hyper able to change your course. So many different situations. And so they would start talking, and then I'd say, take a look at each other. They would see what we just saw in each other. And then I would say, this took 5 minutes, this took 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And I don't even know your problem, and it will be easy to solve. The second part is how can I live up to such a thing? And I can only give a little intro because it's a big topic of all the things that are dilemmas in life or in relationships and families. But basically, I really was embarrassed to charge for it, but it worked so well. When we would switch after talking about what people love and admire about each other, say, okay, let's talk about the problem that you probably thought we were going to start with. And I would say I just have one format, is when someone brings up a problem, the other person has to say, thank you for bringing it up. And if you can stay with that mood, you can also say, I admire the courage that it took to bring it up, because it doesn't go well usually, so you have courage, you're bringing it up. And then the other person is required to say, you're very welcome. It was that simple. That respect is not very deeply hidden in the politeness of thank you and you're welcome. But it's signs, verbal signs, that a number of things, that something happened when you say, thank you for telling me, that lets the person know they were heard. It's a big deal. People like that feeling. But not I heard you. It's more emotional. Thank you for telling me. Why? I've got things to say all stacked up, like this is the path to where you end up on the same side of the church, blessing your children's marriage, instead of like sending a kind of a mixed message with your new boyfriend and your new wife over here and all these different scrambled things, and then there's your kids trying to get married. We just did the first step towards that direction. So either if I say it or not, it's all a matter of kind of the choice of so many things can be said. But then when I'm getting back to the problem solving, someone says, you don't pay enough attention to the kids, that kind of a thing. You come home and you're like zonked out or something like that, and it's at the very least they miss you, and so this would kind of be a father possibly saying, thank you for telling me. And then to go on to help the person raising the complaint by saying, wow, you're letting me know how loved I am by my family. And I miss that when I walk by because of I'm tired or whatever I am. I miss that, and you're helping really save the heart of my life by telling me that I just zoom past the kids all the time. And now, if just staying with this kind of gender, the wife is saying, wow, I had no idea I was doing that. I thought I was complaining about you not being a good enough attentive father. And then they start to see, yeah, this is a co-created path of upgrading each other's initial statement. If someone says, yeah, this isn't going well, I'm hearing, well, what are they trying to bring about? What is the longing for? The kids miss you. You walk by that, they don't even notice that you walk by. Then there would be a different problem. Like, wow, I think you want to be able to be noticed by your kids, and it's going to be a new world when you learn how to do certain things and you see that they notice that you're there. So there's, whatever the problem may be, there's a way of hearing what the answer or the better thing would be. And then, and it can be the worst problems. I had loaded weapons go off in the background of phone calls, very serious situations, and having to do lots of steps, but not quite this simple. But by and large, from arguing incessantly or bad behavior of one sort or another, or lack of sharing authority, decision making is a big part of family life, couples, married, people, is, which way did it get done this time? My way or her way or something like that. And sharing. And so, and that can all be, I found, taught. So that's just a glimpse of translating bhakti. Maybe I'll say a few more words, how come I can say that. But I'm translating of longing into a marriage therapy or family therapy modality. You come in with a complaint, I hear it as a longing for something beautiful. They don't know that yet. They think it's a divorceable problem. It's like, if he does this one more time, I'm out of here kind of a thing. And I hear, oh, you really, really want this to happen. Meaning the inverse, you could say. The father picks up the kids and plays it with them, or hugs the wife, or whatever it is. You uncover what's being longed for. And then my colleagues, they love talking about how did that make you angry that this doesn't happen? And let it out. Yeah, it really pisses me off. And then you help the other person to weather that anger. That was the model for individual therapy, where you get your angers out, not for somebody who you live with day in and day out, who it's not that helpful. But what I did find is exactly what the Bhakti psychology was teaching. If there's anger, there's a longing for something that's gotten frustrated of not occurring. And the more that I can be believed and say, oh, it sounds like you're longing for this. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 back and forth, and someone will say, yeah, that's really what it is. And then I will get kind of dramatic. I may go, wow, thank you so much. Because another aspect that's uncommon in therapy is for the therapist to express types of gratitude for any degree of being trusted by a client. Just coming in the door is a huge act of trust. But negotiating whether something counts as a piece of progress, that's what we depend on, and people can refuse that because they're in kind of bad places. Vengeful is what I kind of call them. They don't want it to get better. They want somebody to pay a price, and those are advanced interventions. If we did a months of conversation, I could say how you work with that situation where people gain pleasure. That's the last resort. You don't think real pleasure is possible of being friendly and warm and affectionate, so you get pleasure out of sticking it to the other person. It's called, in psychoanalysis, it's called sadism in a very technical way, of the ability to find pleasure in causing pain. And masochism goes right along with it. People learn how to feel hopeless, and we heard about victim attitude, and it's not a real pleasure, but it takes the form of that pleasure as a substitute for, look at how beautiful you're looking at me right now. You're giving me so much attention. People are taking notes. Look, you should look at this look that I'm getting right now. Yes, you almost did the bewitched. Right. And so the subject and mood can be changed at any time. That is a type of mastery where you don't need to be in the coherent emotional logic of this got said, then that gets said, is you can suddenly say, and I've done this many times, particularly with suicidal people, because we want to show people, suicidality is like really a very difficult circular thinking that makes people end up feeling hopeless. They can't get out of this bad thought form. Like, why do I exist? It's not a question that you can find an answer easily. It's a big philosophical question, but people say, why not, what's the use? What's the purpose of being alive? And it's, what I don't hear it is like, we've got to find the answer to that, is so much as the longing that is a profound spiritual quest for meaning. And so then it becomes not a looking for where did it come from, but where can this lead to? And for example, with suicidality, there's many things, but I would just say some things like, I feel so blessed that it's like a sacred space. You have the power of life and death in your hands, of yourself, and you're telling me about this. It's the most profound power that humans can have in a certain way. And they go, what? What about medication or something for me? I say, no, listen, a lot of people became saints. Christ, for example. Christ says, why hast thou forsaken me? So that, it's a powerful part of Western spiritual vocabulary or lines that we know have been said and written down to be helpful. Why hast thou forsaken me? And then if you cry out, and then the God came, and Christ descended, and a lot of people have been helped from very dark places by that kind of dialogue, and variations of that for that difficult place of pondering the end of one's life. Before the age of reason, and this was Christ, this in Western point of view, is when you love someone or feel open in some way to them, they become different. And in the clinical situation, this is very dramatic because we're trained to diagnose stuff like narcissism or schizophrenia. And I did have a long-term specialty in psychosis. And so these are states that are very different from probably, maybe, I think, except if you know someone who's been in that state, it's different from what we're sharing right now. And so how do you make contact with someone like that? What I found was very simple compliments, like, thank you for coming to my session. Thank you for trusting me. And it would take a while for someone to believe that I had given them a compliment. And I might say that. It takes a lot longer to receive a compliment than we might think, like a thank you. And then I would watch their moisture on their eyes. And I could choose or tune into paranoia, where the person's looking at me like, what are you really thinking about me right now? Suspicion. But then I could go in this Bhakti tradition and see it. Oh, they're really longing to make contact with me, but it's not that simple. So they're wary. and they may have been burned. So, it's not so simple to have affection and share affection. In a certain age, yeah, we've been burned and we're a little bit wary. So you learn to see wariness and loneliness. Loneliness is a very big deal in the Bhakti path. Bereft, amazing grace, I once was blind. I could not see, And then you came and I was redeemed into real life, So this ability to feel completely lost and alone is an amazing aspect of the that need for reaching out that is starting to perhaps feel more and more hopelessly lost. And if you can start seeing that in people, there's a paradox. Loneliness, by its definition of the term, means you feel too alone. You feel cut off and alone. But if someone sees your loneliness, guess what? It's being shared. And so if you say, I see how incredibly alone you've come to feel. And I think you're talking to voices that no one else hears because they give you company, at least. And some of them are pretty harsh, but it's better than nothing. And then I'll see in the eye that I've gotten inside that loneliness that they live in a psychotic state or a delusional schizophrenic state. And then it becomes this art. I guess I'm giving a bigger talk on clinical topics of helping someone to prefer the slight unpredictability of a human interaction over the now quite predictable paranoid voices and delusions that are going on. They would start to prefer, and to explain that, I might not, might not be on time when you knocked on my door. Now you got to wait. You wonder, did I forget? In the delusional world, you kind of are in charge of most all of it, even if it doesn't seem that way. But in real life, people are less predictable to meet our needs. So it's always the same, not always, it's a big common situation of either it's happening or it isn't happening. If it's happening, that's where the great poet said, I love the union when Rama comes to me. But I also love the longing when I'm wandering around. Rumi is going down all the streets. Where's the beloved? Where? He's not saying, I wish I didn't feel this way, but he would say it. But it's still reinterpreted as the passion of part of life.